come on up. While they take their seats, thank you. We have Jack Pocket that is giving us a special promo code. What did I get? You got your microphone there? You sitting on it?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. So what do we get with the promo code?
You get a free lottery ticket, so feel free to download and see if you become a millionaire.
Woohoo! It's that simple.
You can retire then.
It's that easy. And if you don't become a millionaire, it's not AGS's fault. Talk to her. No, and we don't get anything off of this. This is no like affiliate thing. Like literally, it's just, she just said, hey, can we give a code? Yeah, we don't take any sort of money. Other than sponsors. If you want to sponsor more things. Okay, I'm just joking. Okay, let's go. Can we all? Oh, sorry.
That's a quick way to shut me up.
No, sir. There we go. Okay, that'll work. Cool, thank you.
Good to go. Can we all just agree right now if somebody does win the lottery, we just split it across everyone here? Let's all benefit from this. Jokes aside, thanks for giving that code out. And I'm really fired up to be sitting with the experts today, talking ROI, UA, and media modeling. We want to keep this a little different, keep it conversational. A lot of the panels were just going up and down, asking questions. We wrote down some questions that serve more as conversation starters. So if you have questions in real time for any of the experts, please raise your hand. I just want to keep it loose, airy, before, I can't say lunch. I was told not to say lunch. But before we get started, let's kick it off some quick introductions. Let's go who you are, where do you work, and what do you do in your current role?
Okay, do you hear me, guys? Yeah, okay. So I'm Manuel, I'm Deputy CEO at Addict Mobile. So I'm based out of Paris. Maybe you hear it with my accent. Yeah, Paris, nice city, but it's full of garbage at the moment. So it's nice to be here, actually. So Addict Mobile is a app marketing agency. So we established in 2015, and basically we do everything that's related to app marketing, from obviously campaign management, creative production, ASO. We have dashboards, we have a bit of everything. And yeah, we have offices in Madrid, in Germany, in France, and in New York. And yeah, happy to share the panel with you guys.
I'm Alethea Halbig, based in New York, also filled with garbage at the moment. I'm the Director of Digital Marketing at Natural Cycles, which is the first and only birth control app, mostly focusing in performance marketing and new paying user growth.
I'm Marouk. I live in Fairfield, Connecticut. I've been in marketing for over 10 years. I work at Jack Pocket, which is a mobile app for buying lottery tickets. We're in 15 states, in New York and New Jersey. We've been #1 in the App Store last year a few times, and our users have won over $250 million in the app. So yeah, yeah, that's it.
And awesome, I'm John Gunther, Head of Sales at Smodex. We're a DSP specializing in mobile and CTV, and excited to be sitting up on stage with you all today. Let's jump into it. A lot of different channels have been discussed today: OTT, CTV, DSPs, ASA, social, just to name a few. It seems like there's a never-ending list of partners and channels to choose from. Like, how do you guys effectively navigate the complex world of UA channels, emerging platforms, to drive growth and ultimately monetize your app?
Yeah, I'll go. The first thing I do is I look at the target audience. You really have to understand who your audience is before you start picking channels and spending your money. So that's really important, and it's different for every brand. So once you figure out who your audience is, then you can really allocate your budget to different channels. But ideally, you want to really test what channels work for you. And then once you do really rigorous testing, then you figure out which channel drives the most ROI for your company or your brand. And then you prioritize based on ROI. But also, it's really important to diversify. So even, let's say you find like TikTok is your biggest revenue driver, you always want to be experimenting and trying different channels. And then ultimately, once you find your high revenue drivers, You want to kind of build a community using those users. So you want to, create a loyalty program and continue to engage those users. So you're not, you didn't waste your dollars and, get churn from those. So kind of do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think first part, of course, is like, is my audience even on this platform that I'm choosing? But also, at least for us, how is that creative going to be shown is so essential, as a product where such a key part is the education, certain things like if it's short or, display is maybe less of an initial channel test than something more like video content, UGC content, influencers, where we can really showcase user stories in the app. So first, does my audience live there? And second, how can I showcase my creative and my unique, value props?
Yeah, on our side, so we worked with, I think, over 500 apps, so we've seen a lot, and we often get like, how do I expand to new sources, because I'm stuck with, let's say, Google and Meta. I think the first thing is always to have some test budget, like 10, 20%, and analyze your audience, see if it's there, like, for example, I don't know, like, people who have who have made audience, they want to go on Pinterest, and I'm like, okay, but first it's probably not the audience, and they don't really have like that performance-driven algorithm that may fit your needs. So maybe if you want to do branding or visibility or something like that, so always take the source itself and see the potential of it before just like going straight at it. So yeah, that's our advice. And what we've seen, obviously, in the recent months is really TikTok booming, so try to understand how it works. We're probably going to talk a bit about this connected TV also. So yeah, I don't want to spoil, but yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, what new channels have you been testing in the last 6 months, and are there any new channels that you're excited about testing in the near future?
So a lot of DSPs, something that we started doing last year that we hadn't done before. We've tested this with this company called Start.io. It's a platform where you can basically have your app show with next to similar apps, so that's different. We've tested playables, we've tested third-party audiences with Bango audiences. And then in terms of what I'm excited about, we're looking to test with a company called Infuse Network. They leverage influencer ads, and I think that's something different that I don't see a lot of vendors doing. So I'm excited to see, we've done a lot of influencer-sponsored posts. We get engagement, but we don't get down-funnel events. So this is a network that leverages influencer ads to drive performance. So I'm looking forward to see how that test does. And then we're also doing a lot of direct deals with premium publishers. So I think that'll be interesting. We've done a lot of OTT, but we're looking to break into CTV as well. So we're gonna do a test where we do one with programmatic CTV versus our current CTV partner and see how that does. And then, just a lot of also testing with Meta. We're looking to do like the bid multiplier test. So we're one of our challenges is we're in 15 states. So it's really difficult with the state limitation. And then with Meta, with the iOS update, you really have to consolidate. So we've gained a lot of efficiency with consolidation. But what we're finding is when we launch in new markets, it's really difficult to scale in those new markets with the consolidation. So I feel the bid multiplier test will be really good to kind of continue to gain efficiencies with consolidating, but like be able to scale in particular markets. And then, there's custom event optimization, so bringing in LTVs into Meta and then optimizing for that, moving away from just focusing on CACs. And then one more thing is with Instagram, Instagram has a new ad format coming out. It's with the Remind Me button, and it's mostly supposed to be for events, but I think it could be great for using, basically when a user clicks on the Remind Me button, they would get 3 reminders that the event is happening, and I think that could be really great to leverage for when the Powerball is, over 500 million, you can get a reminder to play the lottery on Jackpocket. And also, they're also coming out with search ads in Instagram, so I think that'll be interesting to see how that does.
Yeah, absolutely. Few things we've been testing, surprisingly enough, Snapchat, and that's been performing with us, like pretty strong Gen Z population there. We have done a little bit of testing within Spotify podcasts, with that pod sites attribution. We've been kind of expanding within TV Scientific and expanding more within other affiliate channels as well. So really just trying to experiment. And then, of course, with Meta, still a channel that's performing for us, so just experimenting there, like you said, especially with consolidation. We're live across quite a few markets, so seeing how we can kind of have those market pairings in order to have like the highest sort of efficiency there.
Yeah, well, the sources we've been testing that may be new, we've been testing Reddit, Spotify as well. Yeah, those new channels that don't necessarily have that performance algorithm, but that sometimes you might find a good spot for your apps. We've been having success on Twitter, actually, which is surprising, but for a very specific app like finance, crypto apps, So yeah, it's very dependent on the apps. I checked this morning, and we tested over, I think it's 170 sources in like 8 years since Addict exists. So yeah, we've been testing a lot, and in the end, you kind of invest in the top 10 ones, let's say. So yeah, and yeah, I'm excited about, obviously, TikTok. It's been there, but it's like booming with UGC approach and CTV definitely. That's where.
Now, as you continue to onboard channels and you're testing, like what are some of the common challenges and pitfalls that you go through just managing your media mix?
For me, and I'm sure for a lot of you, is the loss of user-level data. We're only in 3 states on Android, so unfortunately we have to put a lot of budget into iOS. So relying on scan is really tricky. Our business is heavily reliant on the jackpot size. So whenever the jackpot is like $1 billion, when it was in January, everybody wants to play the lottery. So, that's when scan works. But when jackpots are low, not many people are interested in playing. So we really can't rely on scan because we won't be able to hit the privacy thresholds. So what we've done is kind of shifted our budgets across partners that can rely more on probabilistic matching. We've also invested heavily in traditional channels as well. Being an RMG client, we have some limitations on Meta and Google. So actually, we found that like TV and radio really work, and OTT as well. And Snap and Twitter also work really well for us when the jackpots are high. So, yeah.
Yeah, as a healthcare and a contraception app, everything with privacy, I feel like is 2x fold with us. We really want to be by the book. And, we see comments all the time with privacy, of course, concerns. So, as we create a more private, and really protecting our users' data first, sometimes that also comes with the loss of, user information and events. So, we found ways to optimize that, whether that's incrementality test or code testing or some of our traditional channels. But of course, I do miss the days when you had all of that user data and you could target just about anything in Meta.
Yeah, well, it's honestly, it's a saying here. So yeah, the main topic is to make sure that you can read and understand the data when it comes to different channels. We've seen a lot of clients that have different setups in terms of look-back window and so on, attribution window. So it's like you have to understand how the data is reflected in your MMP and how to manage that. Yeah, incrementality is one big thing, especially when you start spending a lot in a lot of sources. It's like, what brings incrementality? I think in another talk, someone was speaking about ASA. That's definitely a topic that we always have. How do you find TikTok in terms of incrementality? Because CPM are so low, you deliver a lot of impressions that may not directly lead to an install or to an attribution towards TikToks, but maybe you have more outcome of it. So it's like you have sometimes to take a holistic approach, especially in that data privacy life that we're living now, and think, okay, I'm doing all those channels, what is the impact when I overview things with all the channels?
Nice. Let's talk budgets here. How do you manage your budgets across all these different platforms?
I mean, we use a lot of different methodologies. You know, we look at our blended CPA, we look at our cohorted data, and we also use a MMM partner. They use Bayesian statistics, and they basically look at our historical data and come up with a model. They help us figure out what our baseline spend should be. So basically, if we cut off marketing, how many conversions we would still get, what our saturation point would be for each channel. So, you know, up till a certain point, like when you start spending way too much, you're just gonna become inefficient. So that's very important to know. And then we kind of look at all three different strategies to figure out where we should put our dollars. So yeah, I think it's just, you know, really challenging right now to figure out what's the best method to use. We're still trying to figure that out. But I think the modeling has really helped us because, you know, everyone thinks like Apple search ads is amazing. But, you know, according to our modeling, it's actually, you know, a lot of it's a demand capture channel, and a lot of it is driven by, you know, like branding. And one example I have of that is when we launched in a brand new market, we had no branding. I turned on Apple search ads, and literally like very low impressions, like no volume. And then as soon as we launched radio and TV in that market, you know, that market became one of our highest spending you know, campaign in Apple search. And I'm like, okay, that's strange. I mean, obviously, it's a lot of the branding that really played a role in that example.
Yeah, absolutely. With Apple search, I mean, there's a direct correlation, you know, with our branded terms and search volume there. And with that too, it's also, you know, keyword value versus volume. You know, like a period tracker, there's so much more volume, but ovulation app is going to drive such a higher ROAS. So I digress. But in terms of total, like, media balancing, you know, a big part of it is keeping scalability in mind with CPA, operating off of that kind of like bake CPA target per market and understanding the sensitivities there. Like Sweden, it's a lot harder to source influencers than the US, so also keeping that in mind with our channel mix as well. And then of course, you know, having that allocation of like a testing budget as well baked into that overall CPA, because we need to always be, you know, experimenting and diversifying our channel media mix.
Yeah, definitely. I think we covered the topic. One thing I wanted to add is what you said actually is interesting, is that when you have a worldwide campaigns and two OS, that you can't have the same LTV objective or CPI objective, CPA, whatever it is, because you want to have the same outcome from users on iOS and Android per geo and sometimes per channel. Really depends. So it's a lot of, I guess, data analysis to do and to make sure that you have the objective that are very consistent and that you can adapt your media mix. So yeah.
Now you touched on testing. Like when you're looking at new channels, new partners, walk me through your process of evaluating a new channel, DSP, or something that you're thinking about testing.
Yeah. I think one thing that's really helped our team is we have a UA partner evaluation doc that we update. So the entire team offline, everybody is like putting what steps they are in the process in that document, so there's no overlap, and there's also helps with the collaboration. So we do that, and that's been really helpful. And then when we're looking at evaluating partners, I think it's very important to look at how transparent that partner is with their data. If they're not being very transparent, that's a red flag. Also, like the measurement portion, so reporting, are they integrated with our MMP? You know, what are their reporting capabilities? I usually send a PDF to the partner and like with a kind of a guideline of what our reporting requirements are. So that's really helpful. And then also like the pricing model, is it CPI, CPM, CPA? You know, and then based on that, we kind of prioritize what channel to test or what partner to test.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, of course, I'm reiterating the same point, but is our audience there? How can we convey our message? But as, again, a birth control app, how that partner processes their data privacy, there's a number of like different paperwork that they're gonna have to fill out with us, and we're gonna have to look at their data protection agreement because our user data is first, so if they're possibly, you know, having access to our user data, you know, it's got to be anonymized, it's got to be hashed, and like we want to make sure that they're processing any pixel information that they might have in a compliant way. So data privacy is definitely amongst like the #1 priority with certain partners, but also like, is this channel even going to be scalable, right? Like how can we convey what our brand is, what our app does, since it is a little bit more of an educational factor as well. So those are some key components when we're evaluating new partners.
Yeah, definitely. I think the scalability is very important because you can find success in some sources, but if you get 3 installs a day, it's just like you're wasting your efforts and actually the network as well. So I think it's important always. At the moment, we still have Android that can be very helpful when it comes to testing creatives, breakdowns, and so on. We'll see what happens in like 6-9 months' time. But yeah, you use obviously Android to make tests. Yeah.
How has SCAN or even like the current economic climate impacted your ability to test? Are you seeing less testing? Or are you just going business as usual? Any impact at all?
I'd say it's interesting, you know, being in the lottery business. I'm not saying we're recession-proof, but we do notice that when the economy's not doing so great, we've noticed trends like, for instance, during the pandemic, when the stimulus checks went out, we saw a huge spike in sales and people buying lottery tickets. And I think that might have been an anomaly because, you know, people couldn't go out to eat, couldn't travel. So, you know, they were spending money on lottery tickets with their stimulus checks. So, I mean, I think with, it impacts us in the sense that, you know, if users have less money or they're worried about, you know, their jobs, you know, they might not be able to have extra spending. But in general, I think we're more tied to the probability of the jackpot going up. So basically, when the jackpot size goes up, you know, over 500 or 600 million, we see a huge increase and spike in interest in people playing the lottery. When it's low, so not as much interest. So that really drives our business more than like external factors.
Yeah, there's definitely a few external factors. I mean, economic, so the strength of the US dollar, our accounts are in USD, so helps with our, you know, US CPA, but also that's going to impact our UK and Sweden, our other market CPAs. As a birth control app, definitely the political climate, you know, last year with Roe v. Wade being overturned, that definitely impacts app installs. And also adjust your messaging, right? It's amazing how these kind of large macro events can be so impactful for like a small business. So addressing those concerns, adapting creative accordingly, and then, you know, just kind of like responding accordingly, of course, with like certain recessions. We are a healthcare app, so there is a little bit of, you know, consistency there as well, but, you know, we're taking measures like now being covered by certain insurances, so making sure that we're staying aware with current events and we're also adapting accordingly to make it more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, on our side, we're not an app developer, we are an agency, so we're affected indirectly, like some of our clients suffered from layoffs, cost reduction, so obviously it has impact on budgets. And in general, you do less tests, you're like, stay to what works. So obviously the big ones. So yeah, that's what we've seen in the last, let's say, 6 months.
So switching gears, we've talked through multiple channels. We've talked about evaluating them, testing them, spreading budgets across them, and optimizing. What channels are working for you? And do you have any tips, tricks, best practices you can share with the crew?
I mean, in terms of channels that are working, I mean, TV is working, OTT works when the jackpots are high, Snap and Twitter works when the jackpots are high. Meta works when we scale and hit the privacy thresholds. And in terms of like best practices, I would say the one thing that I've discovered is, with lack of data, we really have to rely on creative testing. And we implemented dynamic ads last year, and just looking at the data, we've seen a 70% reduction in our CACs just with using dynamic ads. And then also we've started to use more UGC. Actually, UGC works really well. I think it kind of builds trust with the users, with people. They see winners, and people are excited about using the app and winning. So I think that really helps as well. And then influencers. Up till now, we've kind of used influencers for more, organic, driving organic traffic. So we're kind of using them more now for sponsored posts. And then in terms of like how we use influencers, I found that like using nano influencers is a bit more effective because, when we use big name influencers, they're constantly doing sponsored posts. So users don't trust them as much, and nano influencers have more engagement, and they don't do as many sponsored posts. So it's like a little less, the less frequency helps a lot as well.
Yeah, I would say Meta with UGC is a really strong combination for us. People just want to hear from actual users and not from the app itself, and want to hear about their experience, since a lot of people who join our app are similar. I always say people join the app for what we're not rather than what we are, like non-hormonal, non-invasive, like we're not this. So hearing from people and why they joined is a really key part of our creative. We do have a lot of success with influencers, bigger ones as well sometimes too, because granted they have that sort of large scale and we are kind of a broad sort of product. That being said, boosting large influencers isn't necessarily sometimes as strong as some of these smaller ambassador UGC creators who are really developing this very kind of like high-end and personal content as well. So like Meta and Reels has been a pretty strong placement for us. That being said, paid search, but of course there's only so much scalability within the phrase birth control app or fertility tracker ovulation app. So of course focusing on branding there. Have seen success amongst affiliate as well. And then TikTok from time to time, but as we're going to touch on it more, like it's such a beast coming up with constant creative to serve there. So definitely it takes a bit more to fight the ad fatigue, I would say, in TikTok than something like Meta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what we've seen, on at Addict, on a general overview of all the clients we have for the past 8 years, basically the market share of our spend on Meta is decreasing every year. Google is taking some of this market share, especially since the UAC, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. And more recently, ASA, Snapchat, and TikTok really for the, let's say, 6-12 months, it's been better. So that's what we've seen. And then we have obviously the DSP and so on. So then it comes to the vertical you're in. If I take gaming was very strong on Meta, and since ATT, they basically moved their budget to video and networks like the AppLovin, ironSource, Unity, and so on. So we've seen different behaviors depending on your vertical, depending on the channels. So it's always hard to say that there's one better than another, but that trend comes to like Meta's decreasing, Google's very strong on Android, obviously, and then you have like TikTok to follow. And probably the next big thing is connected TV that has a lot of advantages, tracking and so on. So we'll touch on this.
Yeah, TikTok's come up a couple times just in this past question. I've spoken to a lot of advertisers. They can't get it to work. They test and they don't see great LTV. Do you have any strategies that you can share that like how you've seen success or what campaign structure looks like to lead to success?
I'll skip this one because as the RMG client, we're not allowed on TikTok. So
That's fair. I would say with TikTok too. I mean, success. It's like we'll have creative that's successful and then not. So I would say like pardon my language, but there's kind of like a high sort of bullshit detector amongst like TikTok consumers. You know, they don't really want to be served ads as much. They want content. They want education. They want transparency. So on paid social regardless, I feel like looking at comments is such a great qualitative source of data. Like you're really seeing what those blockers are, and TikTok's a good source. But you know, as there's more rules coming out, especially with TikTok, a lot of advertisers, I think, were playing pretty fast and loose with copyrighted music. As we definitely tried to avoid that. But certain sounds, certain music now that are trending are copyrighted. So also navigating how to hop on a trend or be educational without using some of these trending songs that are copyrighted, I think is an interesting challenge for organic also views as well on TikTok. So just making sure that your content is engaging, it's informative, not ad first, but content first, I think is really crucial on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, since UGC is booming like for the past few months, I think the big challenge, we were talking about it earlier, it's sourcing the creators. Mm-hmm. My take on this is I don't know how long it's gonna last because creators start seeing the economy behind TikTok and they request like not a lot of money now to create content, but they may ask for more, which make all the performance-driven campaign that need to have a lot of creative refresh, and there's ad fatigue, so you would need a lot of creators, but if it costs more, it's gonna start being like kind of influencer marketing, which is not that performance-driven. So just go for it at the moment because it's the moment to try it. We'll see how long it goes. And we've seen with some clients like very successful campaigns since we started UGC. So yeah, that's what we can see on TikTok.
Well, the shot clock is starting to give me anxiety, so I'm going to skip ahead to some later questions because I want to save some time for the audience to ask any questions they have. Maruk, since you couldn't talk TikTok, let's talk some of the channels that you mentioned that you were testing, OTT, CTV. Do you have any learnings that you can share? Challenges, pitfalls, strategies that you've been using for those channels specifically?
I mean, in terms of like the benefits of OTT and CTV, prior speaker mentioned, there's a lot of reach. So it's something that, I feel like everyone should be investing some testing budget into. There's, branding, brand awareness. I think, we've been using OTT for more branding, I think there's definitely opportunities to kind of use it for performance. We've seen some efficiencies when, in certain seasonal periods. And then with CTV, we're just starting to delve into CTV. We're looking to do a test with a programmatic CTV partner versus our current CTV partner. So I think that'll be interesting. And then, I think we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I would say definitely, tailor the creative to the channel. And then also, I'm a big favor of kind of also starting broad and tailoring down and using the insights that are available in the channel. Like Snapchat users behave definitely different than Meta, where, it's more of that 20 to 24 range rather than that 25 to 34 that we see within Meta. And certain markets in the EU are stronger on Snapchat than others. So kind of with these new testing channels, making sure that you're looking at the data that is available and kind of like fine tuning in order to ensure like success within that new channel.
Yeah, and regarding connected TV, I think what's important is that you match your ASO to what you're gonna push on TV, because we were mentioning QR codes, but honestly people will look for your app through the stores, so just make sure that it reflects what you've been showing and make sure that on your commercials there are, the main features are the brand. A couple more things is that now the bidding that we can do on connected TV is CPM, CPC, we can even do CPI, so it's less risky. You don't need that much budget to test. So it's pretty good. And I think the way we are seeing things operationally, it's kind of back 5 or 10 years in terms of campaign management. There's no algorithm like QAC behind. It's like you have to check per channel, per TV commercial, whatever. It's like manual optimization. There's fraud that can happen, impression spamming, let's call it, or click injection, that kind of thing. So this is a bit back in like 5 years ago on the mobile, but there's so much potential, so much inventory. I get like a lot of partners saying, do you have connected TV campaigns? And they are really pushing it. So prices are pretty low at the moment. So yeah, same, a bit like TikTok. You have to jump into it now.
Well, let's open it up. Any questions from the audience? We got one in back.
Hi, Jeff. Yeah.
We're both like very content-driven marketing programs. What's your like content strategy?
That's a great question. So we're actually working with a good partner, Kira, to develop more TikTok content. So we kind of have a content sort of hierarchy of like education versus like questionnaire of kind of like people who are missing this sort of education gap as well, versus, you know, like how-tos on how to use the app. But basically kind of just developing that content based on sort of engagement and what we've seen before, and what that content looks like definitely depends on the channel. So TikTok has been a really great avenue for us to have a lot of that organic content out there, whether it's like how to use the app, which is very, you know, direct result focused, versus like, did you know you can't get pregnant every day of your cycle, or this is how to track ABC. So while it is pretty connected, we do even have like higher level, like we have a blog that actually drives a lot of SEO content, and some of that is very, very high level, but a lot of education that a lot of women didn't necessarily have. So it depends on the platform, whether it's blog or TikTok, but we've really found that educational niche helps build trust, it helps build credibility, but it also builds that kind of like organic upper funnel audience for us as well to kind of like drive more direct results initiatives later. Honestly, purchases. So with our app too, it's really like in-app purchase, sometimes even web purchase as well. We don't really have a strong, I would say, I don't want to say that, but like the demo mode isn't as useful for our users simply because there is a hardware component to our app. We are focusing on expanding that hardware. Like we partnered with Aura, so now that's a new audience we can use where there's less of that roadblocker from, you know, well, they already have that device. All they have to do is download the app. So with that, we're able to focus a little bit more higher level. I mean, of course, we do have upper funnel lead objectives as well, but I wouldn't say installs is our main sort of like KPI. We're always focusing on, you know, ROAS and purchases.
I just want to add, Aura did really well for us. Not currently, but at my last mobile app that I was. So it brings in a high quality users. I mean, it's hard to scale, but so I would highly recommend it. But you have to be a highly rated app. And then content marketing does work well as well. At my last company, we partnered with Penny Hoarder, and you know, it brought in a lot of high quality users. So really, like for your audience, find the content and then partner with those kind of brands to, you know, market.
Yeah, I mean it's its own channel of in itself. Brand partnerships, you know, it's hard to necessarily scale, but when Aura, you know, the hardware, when we partnered with them and that product collaboration came out, I mean, just using their CRM list alone was a big driver for us. But that's obviously, it's harder to scale as a marketer, but brand partnerships are pretty strong performing when you have that opportunity.
Yeah.
I would have a second one. How do you avoid the App Store fees? Are you using some type of, what does email play in your marketing mix?
So we do have quite a bit of conversions that do come through web. We do have that UA focus because we are an app first and foremost, but we do get quite a bit of subscriptions through web first and then downloading the app later. So that is one key component to kind of avoid those fees. We do optimize towards both for all the app advertisers here, but that's kind of one way that we've navigated around some of those fees. Yep.
So that question, do you manage pricing differently?
I mean, when we do paid, yeah, we definitely have a different threshold, I would say, going through app, simply because there is that different benchmark. But I can't say it's a huge difference, because sometimes there are promo initiatives, so we might do more promos necessarily with web, but not necessarily through app initiatives.
Yeah, on this topic, we had that quite a lot, with, especially with when you have a service that's both on web and app, because you take 20, 30% out of the revenues. What we've seen is just like what the customer path of your users, what's the use in the end. We've seen like streaming apps, for example, if we take Spotify or Deezer, that's kind of Spotify, very famous in France. What they do is basically they do most of their acquisition on the web, and then connect to the app, the users to the app, because it's better for them. But some others, they have like more of an app use, so they won't, even though they may lose like 20% of their revenue, they may go straight to the app. So I think it's as well a A/B test, because we've been doing this for new product, new services, and you have to find out what's the best in terms of retention, revenues, and not only like think, okay, I'm gonna lose 20% or 30%, depending if it's a subscription, whatever. So yeah.
Besides the obvious like video and TV, are there any other platforms or partners that you find to be very good as far as assisting in the install? Like part that you'd be surprised at? Like, I find Reddit people are very good at ignoring ads. Maybe it does do a good on assisting. I don't know if you guys have found anything similar. Like, what platforms you find that on?
I think Reddit at the moment, if you are looking for like a direct return on investment, definitely not working, except I was mentioning crypto, that's so specific and very Reddit style. Yeah, it's something we didn't push that much, so it's hard to say the impact in general that Reddit has when you spend, because when you start spending on Reddit, it means that you already spend like in a lot of channels, so it's kind of hard to say Reddit has that impact. I think except the one you mentioned, it's hard at the moment to really find new ones. I think there's opportunities on video ad networks outside of gaming for other apps. Sometimes if your CPI is not that low on other channels, but yeah, then we kind of stay on what we mentioned.
Yeah, I would say, I'm trying to think of like times when we've seen that large sort of incremental lift. Larger influencer partnerships, we've definitely seen that sort of influx, but they have to have a strong following. Generally, I mean, PR, like that being said, if there's a large initiative that's going on, it's a trusted source, and we'll see it influx in kind of like more upper funnel, KPIs like traffic to site, installs as well. Or if we just have like a large partnership or like brand initiative sort of going on, naturally speaking, not a channel in and of itself, but that's when you start to see kind of like those incremental lifts occur as well.
Yeah, to add to that, I think for us, earned media is huge. We get a lot of press. We've been on CNBC, Forbes, Fox News, all these like news channels. So that is really helpful, and we utilize that in our ads. That's been really effective for us for the past couple of years. And then also we also leverage sports partnerships. We found an affinity with sports teams, so we have a whole separate side of the marketing team that just focuses on using those and running activations with them. We've partnered with Mets, Islanders, Devils, Rockies, Mavericks, like so many. So that's a really interesting side of the business that I think also helps with driving organic traffic.
We'll take one more, maybe two more. Didn't get anything, so we're going to keep going.
So with all the privacy issues, obviously these ad networks are struggling to find the right users or publishers like us. Have you found or done anything to collect more information during onboarding or collect more behavioral data that can help companies like Addict do their job better and help these ad networks have more data that they don't have access to anymore? Have you done anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. It's definitely hard with the space that we're in because people are very skeptical about providing information to us. Like a lot of the comments we get are, is the data protected? And we're a Swedish-owned company, data protection's our #1 initiative. But in terms of maybe collecting some of that first-party data, what we kind of do is, I would say quiz is a common onboarding sort of process. Like if we want to generate leads, like, people obviously will consent to sharing their information before giving a lead, but that's a good way to kind of gather that sort of first party information to get them into some of our life cycle marketing, as well as, being able to use some of these audiences to create lookalike audiences as well, with like hashed emails and sharing with Meta and stuff, and able to advertise. So it's a little bit nuanced as a contraception app, kind of working within that first party data and using that to build audiences, but that's kind of like one initiative that sort of helped us.
For us, we kind of have to collect the PII information. In order to play the lottery, we have to collect that. So, sometimes it can be a roadblock for people because they're like, oh, why should I give my information? But so we do have a lot of that data, and we kind of, with the data issues, we kind of leverage our first party data through like Braze. For instance, like on Meta, you're missing that data piece. So what we've done is we kind of put our audiences through Braze into Meta, and we run tests like retargeting tests. We do the holdout group in Braze. So that's something we've leveraged, and then also just creating lookalikes off of our first party data and high value users.
Yeah, just to close the loop, I think it's not only an issue of collecting data, it's also when you feed, like Meta, for example, they have less data on their side to match your users, meaning that, the story that it's gonna go that way, and we'll have for the next years less data, so we just have to figure it out on a more holistic view how to manage that. So there's a lot of work to do on the creative, on the channel level, but yeah, targeting is getting tough, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Louis, do we have time for one more question, or how are we doing?
Let's see. Yeah, one more total. I was just going to ask, beyond paid media, which we talked a lot about, like, is there a specific feature you feel like in your app itself, like a product feature you feel like differentiates, helps drive user growth, retention, things that we talked about?
That's a great question. The one thing that I really love about the app is that we get so much user feedback through notifications and surveys and everything. It's hard to say what's a unique value prop because we are the only birth control app per se, but we find that, again, people come to us for what we're not. They just don't want hormonal birth control, but they stay with us because of the educational component as well. There's a lot of articles, there's a lot of information, there's, reminders to check for breast exams as well as like preventative care. And I would say what's really great is, talk about life cycle marketing, people who use the app to prevent pregnancy and then switch to plan mode as well, and then go back to prevent. So really just like covering those different life stages. So I'd say it becomes like, I don't want to sound cheesy, but really like a fertility partner for a lot of women as well. So I think people really stay for that educational aspect, not just about anatomy and biology in general, but how their own bodies actually work and operate.
For us, I would say one of the features that I find cool is we have an autoplay feature. Actually, one of our winners was using this, and they basically autoplay the same numbers over and over again, and they were watching TV and they won $1 million with the autoplay. So I think that's pretty cool. That's not something you can do if you're going to, like a store to buy the tickets. And we have lottery pools as well in certain select states, so people have used that. If you want to play with a bunch of your friends, you can enter a pool. And then just, I find that with like seasonality really impacts, users wanting to use the app versus like going and waiting in line. So I think that's really helpful for people to use the app.
Yeah, I don't have an app. Yeah, well, basically what we've seen with a lot of apps, not applicable for every apps, but it's gamification. Just make sure that it's kind of entertaining using your app if possible. You can, I don't know, if you have leaderboards or if you have data of your own use of the app, that's always, there are articles and a lot of things about that, but I think when I use app personally that use that, I feel more engaged in the app. So yeah, it's always, I think, a good thing.
Well, awesome. First, thank you all for the insights today. Very, very great information to share, and thank you all for your attention, and let's eat.